I'm back with yet another video about white supremacy.
This is a world premiere. This is a world.
White supremacy is not about you. White supremacy is about a system. It's a system that was devised to address A, the cognitive dissonance that is experienced by people when they face the reality of the oppression of others. In the United States, we're talking about Africans and the Native Americans. B, it prevented the collaboration between poor whites and enslaved Africans, which happened often enough for them to need a strategy to deal with it. And C, it created a front line of defense for the social elite. White supremacy did not end with slavery because there was still a need for a cheap labor force in the United States, in most cases free. And there was still a need to prevent former slaves from building enough power and wealth to become a threat to the elite. White supremacy is maintained through a system of beliefs and policies and institutions like the media, the legal system, religious institutions, the family. But white people don't own it, and it is not exclusive. Was it set up to benefit specifically white people? Yes, it was. It also rewards non-white people who help to promote it and maintain it. Are there black people who are racist? Yes, but contrary to what I hear often, the racism of black people is generally directed towards other black people, which accounts for that high incidence of black on black crime that people are always talking about. Are whites ever the target of white supremacy? Yes, especially white people who don't fit the standard of expectations for white people. They may not be as attractive, or they may not have the level of income. That's because we live on a finite planet and there just aren't going to be enough resources to go around to maintain the level of prosperity that is expected and afforded by the exploitation of non-whites. So white people, please stop being triggered by white supremacy. It is not about you as an individual. And black people, stop thinking that your skin color gives you a free pass, because it's possible for black people to benefit from white supremacy too. White supremacy could not exist without the cooperation of a lot of non-white people. White supremacy is not about culprits and victims. It's about a system that destroys people and the planet. It's about keeping people divided, people who should be allies. Now you may be asking, well, if we're talking about a system, why is it that so many black people seem to hate white people and the other way around? Let's look at slavery. Now, if a group of people stood by where you and your people were systematically enslaved, forced into labor, raped, tortured, murdered for 200 years, you might develop some trust issues. You might even harbor some rage, especially if there was never any reconciliation between the groups in question. And as I said, that's one of the functions, to make sure that these groups never collaborate and overthrow the elite. Most people don't bother analyzing the tension that exists between whites and non-whites, and neither should they be expected to. Which is why we should value people who try to bring up the topic instead of trying to shut them down because it makes us uncomfortable. And now I'm not trying to let people who identify as white off the hook. If you, against your better conscience, accept the exploitation of black and brown people throughout the world, you are part of the problem. If you don't accept it, you're part of the problem if you enjoy the products of that exploitation, especially if you know where it comes from. By virtue of being white, you enjoy white privilege, as your whiteness will be preferred in situations more often than not. However, you can be a non-white person and still enjoy white privilege, especially if you've been able to successfully assimilate into white culture, even though you might still hit a barrier from time to time. There are non-white people who even become advocates of white supremacy and help to perpetuate myths about the inferiority of non-whites. There are non-white people who, for whatever reason, end up being attractive to a white society and then find themselves under the protection of it, although you may still hit a barrier from time to time. But regardless, white supremacy is toxic to everyone. It strips us of our humanity regardless of our role in it. In the same way that the exploitation of animals becomes the template for the exploitation of non-whites, the exploitation of non-whites then becomes the template for the exploitation of whites who, for whatever reason, don't fit the mold. White supremacy has always been about the accumulation of wealth through extreme and violent measures. In the end, capitalism doesn't care what color you are. It seeks limitless expansion. And as we live on a planet of finite resources, it will eventually require the exploitation of every living thing, every resource, every idea. And in the end, those who control the machine of capitalism will be left to exploit even themselves. So let's stop denying white supremacy. Let's stop taking it personally and maybe get to dismantling it as the tool of capitalism, which eventually is going to destroy the planet. That's it for this video. Like it if you like it, share, comment, subscribe. This is Reg signing off. Love yourself. Peace.
And I love myself. The world is a ghetto with big guns and dick inside.